right. Brian, what's up? Welcome to the Collective Good podcast.
Glad to be here.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
So glad to have you. And on this truly beautiful day in Columbus, which is a rarity maybe this time of year.
Yep.
But we're in a good spot. And you've got sweet Nikes. I'm always impressed with your shoes.
Thank you.
Are you a sneaker guy?
I am a sneaker guy. Yeah.
Is that something that has been part of you for a long time, or is that new?
It's been part of me for a long time. Particularly the Air Jordan 1s.
Yeah. Heck yeah.
That's my favorite.
Yeah.
So
when did those first come out? Do you remember?
1985.
1985.
Yeah. So I think it's 1985. You're not gonna fact
I believe
check
it.
me
That
here.
sounds about right.
What my memory is, so I was in middle school, and I had a friend, Travis, who had an older brother, Davey. Davey was a senior in high school, and Davey had a job, right, when he was in high school. First dude that we knew to get the Air Jordan 1s.
Dude.
And we would go in his bedroom and stare at him in the closet for 30 minutes. It's so weird, but
I love that.
they were such a game changer, you know?
Heck yeah.
And it's just such a cool shoe. It was so different. It broke all the rules back then.
Yeah.
You know, Nike got fined, or Jordan got fined, right? Because it
Oh, I don't know about that.
yeah, it used to be, I think the NBA, you could have white and one other color in a shoe.
Ah,
And so they had the three colors. They knew they were going to get fined, and you know, it's just kind of that old Nike spirit, right?
Yeah.
Which I kind of love too.
me too.
And this shoe is actually designed by an architect. That's another reason why I love it.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't
So
know that either.
Tinker Hatfield, who was on the Oregon track team, I think he got injured. I think he was a pole vaulter and got injured. And Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight said, "Hey, we want you to help us design some shoes." So he just started designing shoes for Nike, which was a fledgling company at the time, and they tapped him to design. He designed most of the Jordans, so
Amazing.
really cool. So it kind of ties in with
Yeah.
that architecture side as well.
Love
So,
that. And we'll get into that
Yeah.
for sure. But I want to start with kind of your origin story. Let's talk a little bit about where you're from, what life was like when you were growing up as a kid.
Yeah.
So where's home for you?
I grew up in northeastern Ohio, and I always start off with broadly, and then I kind of narrow in to see how people follow me along. Northeastern Ohio, between Canton and New Philadelphia.
Okay.
A lot of people kind of can range that. Small town called Magnolia, Ohio.
Nice.
So that's where most people kind of drop off. They're like, never heard of it.
I haven't heard of that either.
Yeah,
I feel like I've
so-
heard of most places in Ohio. So it's pretty small.
Pretty small town. Yeah, about maybe 6,000 people.
Okay.
And so grew up in Magnolia. And
Was it named after the flower, or what? Do you know what it's
I
named?
think the tree. Yeah,
The tree,
Magnolia tree. Yeah.
So what was life like in Magnolia as a kid?
There was plenty of opportunity to find ways to entertain yourself.
Amen.
Yeah.
Boredom
So-
is not a bad thing. I tell my
totally-
kids that all the time.
I totally agree. Pre-internet and lots of PG-13 hijinks, you know, and just finding fun things to do
Yeah.
with friends. Lots of bike riding. There was one thing, and this is kind of interesting. In Magnolia, they had an airport of all things, a really small airstrip. I don't know the origins of why that was there.
Yeah.
But it became a drag strip. So in the
Sweet.
50s, 60s, and they had kind of a heyday where they would host drag racing.
That sounds amazing.
And it kind of, when I was a kid, they weren't doing that a lot. Every once in a while, you'd hear about it. But what's really cool is, so Bill Heifner, the founder of Rainier, when he found out I was from Magnolia, he goes, "Oh, I used to take my dad's car up there and go drag racing." So I'm like, "Oh my God, you know Magnolia?"
Did his dad know? That's the
I don't know.
question.
That's a good question. Probably not.
Probably
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. So have you ever been on the drag strip?
No.
Yeah,
No, I have
we
not.
got to get you on that. That sounds like a lot of
Would be
fun.
a good story. Yeah.
That would be a good story.
Yeah.
So lots of adventure, kind of like E.T. or like a movie like that where you're just sort of free range. You're out there doing your own thing.
Yeah.
The Goonies or whatever. Is
Yeah,
that-
it's like Stand By Me minus
Stand By
the dead
Me.
body. Yeah.
Yeah, no dead body.
Right.
Good. Don't want that. That's really fun. I feel like our generation was maybe the last generation that got to experience that.
Yeah.
And it makes me sad for our kids that they haven't had that same kind of experience. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I said, I don't think my parents ever knew where I was
Right.
during the day.
Right.
My mom literally, I have
Be
3
home when the
younger
streetlights
brothers.
turn on, yeah.
My mom would kick us out of the house.
Yeah.
And like, not violently, but like, hey, you need to leave.
Go
like
do
we were
something.
just crazy and loud, and like, go outside, go do something, and come back when it's time for dinner.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, there was no way for us to be able to check in.
Yeah.
And I can't even imagine some of the things that I did, and I'm guessing you probably did too.
Right.
That like, if my kids did it right now, I'd be freaked out.
Right.
Like, wait, you did what?
I'm with you. It's so romantic to like think back about that, but there's part of me that feels like it was really irresponsible too, right?
Yeah.
But we're here. We did all right.
We made it.
And yeah, so and learned a lot through those along the way, right?
So what's the high school in Magnolia?
It's Sandy Valley High School. So there's kind of the Tri-Village area. You got Magnolia, East Sparta, and Waynesburg come together to form Sandy Valley.
Okay.
So pretty small, 150 kids per class.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So what was high school like?
High school, it was fine. I didn't love school when I was younger.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until I got to college and kind of found architecture that I really began to engage and love school. Like I had a passion for learning. But yeah, I just kind of went through the motions in high school, so to speak. Yeah, very non-linear path.
Okay.
Right? Yeah.
Were you involved in any extracurricular stuff? You play sports? Or?
Yeah. Well, the good thing about being at a high school that small is that if you have a heartbeat, you can compete in a sport, right? So I tried pretty much all of them. I didn't play football, which I know you did.
Yeah.
Basketball, golf, track.
Sweet.
Yeah. So,
nice.
Yeah.
Wait, so you played golf in high school?
I did. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I know where we're going with this. You want to know the golf story. So I was probably from the age of like 8 to 18 was completely obsessed with golf. And I loved to make things, right? So I would go, when I was probably 8 years old, I tried to make my own golf clubs.
Oh, wow.
I wish I still had it. It was like
like out of nothing, you made
out of
your own?
like wood. That
Oh.
was like all wood. And dude, it was nothing like a golf club. It was like the most like 8-bit looking, thing you could imagine. But I was just so fascinated with it.
Huh.
And I used to go golfing with an uncle of mine. He was much younger brother of my dad's. So he was like 10 years older than me.
Nice.
So he would take me golfing, and he had a Datsun 280Z.
Oh, sweet.
And it was a manual. So he would let me drive back from the golf course. Again, rural area, right? So you got this like 10-year-old, and I'm sitting on his lap because I couldn't reach anything, and I'm like driving this
driving
Datsun.
stick. So you learned how to drive a stick.
Yeah, he would kind of help me with that stuff.
Love that.
But anyway, we would go golfing, and I just loved it.
Yeah.
And I was on the golf team, and you could golf for, I think it was $1 or $2
Oh, wow.
at the Wilkshire golf course.
That's
in Bolivar.
amazing.
Yeah. And
Literally $1?
yeah, so we would go first thing in the morning. We tee off when the ground was still wet.
Wow.
No carts, and this is all part of I don't golf anymore, but I'll get to that. So it was very like contemplative and deliberate, and I loved just being outdoors. I still love being outdoors, and when you could golf and you're walking, it gives you time to think about the shot and the next shot and kind of mentally. It's such a mental game.
Yeah.
Right. And so that was all the way through high school. My cousin, Jeff, and he was on the golf team. We're same age. So
cool.
we would usually pair up together. Tons of great memories there.
Yeah.
But something changed. And I think it was right around the time that Tiger Woods came on the scene. Like I remember going to, used to be called the World Series of Golf in Firestone at Akron. And my grandfather would take Jeff and I up there, and we'd go, and it was kind of just a chill, really cool event. Not that many people around, and you could really interact with these guys, like Freddie Couples back in the day, right?
Love that guy.
So something changed with when Tiger hit the scene. The
Yeah,
game
huge
just
crowds.
blew up. Yeah,
Yeah.
it blew up in these huge crowds, and um, the courses got more crowded. The pressure to play faster, the carts and people, you're trying to hit into people, or people are trying to hit into you and play through, and that coupled with the fact that I was in college, I was broke, I didn't have time. I
Yeah.
went straight from that to having a family, so I just didn't have the time. But I feel like the game, what I loved about it, I think changed.
Hmm.
So yeah,
It's interesting.
yeah.
What do you think it did to the game?
Um, I don't know. I think a lot of ways it was good for the game. I think it drew a lot more people into
Yeah.
the game. Yeah. But I always say it's from 8 to 18. I had a good 10-year window where you know what I mean. I don't know if maybe that's all you need,
Maybe.
and you're kind of good.
I feel like though golf is a unique game because it's something that you can play literally until you
Yeah,
die. I
it
mean,
is. Yeah,
my grandfather and my grandmother both were avid golfers,
yeah,
played almost every day. And I mean, I played golf with my grandfather a few weeks before he passed away.
yeah. That's awesome.
So it is a unique way to be able to stay active and
Hmm.
competitive and all of that. But it is, I agree. I think someone's got to figure out a way to make it more enjoyable of an experience, whether it's like shorter rounds
Yeah,
or less. It feels very stressful.
it's stressful. I'll tell you what I love. So there was I had an uncle who lived in New Mexico in Albuquerque, and I spent a summer living with them when I was in college doing
Dude,
an internship.
lucky. That
Yeah, it
sounds
was
amazing.
awesome. He lived on a golf course, and at dusk, they would kind of stop letting people tee off. We grabbed like 2 or 3 clubs, a handful of balls, and we walk out there and drop down the fairway and play like 2 or 3 holes,
Yeah,
and then come
that's
back. I was like,
brilliant.
it was so relaxing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? You could play barefoot. It was like that type of
yeah,
experience where you're really kind of connected and relaxing. So
yeah. If you could bottle that and then make that the game,
right,
that would be everyone would love that.
right,
But now, if you play golf and if you play a full round, it's every bit of 5 hours.
right.
And if you're like you and me and you got kids, it's hard to not feel guilty being on
Totally
the
agree.
golf
Yeah,
course. It's
exactly.
like,
So much time.
man, this is a huge time
So much
commitment.
time. Yeah.
All right, so you went to college, obviously. Where'd you go to school?
Ohio State. Yep.
Go Bucks.
Go Bucks. Yep.
When were you there?
I was there. I started in 1990,
Okay.
and I was on the 6-year plan. So, as I like to say, going back to the comment I made about nonlinear
Yeah.
path, I started off in engineering, and I kind of hit a ceiling in math and quite honestly passion. It just
Mm,
wasn't moving me,
yeah.
right? And so did a lot of soul searching. I've always been drawn to making things, drawing, and those sort of things. My dad's family was in construction,
Oh,
so I
cool.
grew up around that. So I found architecture, and it was instant connection,
Were
instant
you
love.
were
Yeah.
you artistic when you were
Mhm.
younger,
Yeah.
or because I feel like most people that are drawn to architecture are artists.
Yeah.
So you kind of you had a creative bug
Yeah.
in you, and you
Oh
were
yeah.
able to find sort of your niche there in that.
Yeah.
What's different between architecture and engineering that you enjoyed that part more?
It's totally the creative side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the engineering there's an analytical side, I think, that I have as well. It just didn't move me the way that the creative side did. Because there's an analytical side to architecture also, right? It's kind of
Yeah.
a good mix of lots of different things. But again, going back to, um, I love ideas. I love sharing ideas, right?
Mm,
There's a lot of that, a lot of like collaborative thinking in architecture,
it's cool.
and I love making things. So my favorite part was building models in architecture school.
Yeah. So
Absolutely loved it.
my
Yeah,
my guess is that technologically things were very different in the
yeah,
early 90s when you're learning to do architecture than they are now.
yeah,
So like what was it that what was the craft like when you started?
totally. So even going back to high school, right? I was the mechanical drawing classes, so very tactile right?
So like drawing on
Drawing
paper.
by hand on paper
Yeah.
with either pen or pencil,
Which
right?
does anyone do that anymore?
They
It's
still
all
do.
do
They
they?
still
Okay.
do. There is some fundamental. I've always said drawing is thinking, right?
Hmm.
And kind of goes back to that deliberate nature of the what I like about golf, right? This is like very intentional.
That's cool.
So the started off with hand drawing in high school. We actually did hand drawing in college as well. There was it was kind of that cusp. I think I was in one of the first classes to get an email address
Oh yeah.
at OSU. Yeah,
Nice.
which is kind of wild.
That is
You had to go
wild.
to the computer lab with a little floppy
Heck yeah.
to check your email. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm never going to use this,
Yeah.
right? But so yeah, then as I worked through that, we started doing more computer stuff, 3D modeling in the computer and stuff, which is fascinating. But for me, was never a substitute for like physically making stuff. Yeah,
So I hear, and I'm definitely not an expert when it comes to architecture, but I hear a lot of criticism from just the public about a lack of creativity in modern architecture.
yeah.
And I'm not sure if I buy it or not, but I'm curious what your thoughts are on that. That has somehow all of that moved to things that are more digital, taken away creativity, or has it added to creativity? What are your thoughts about modern architecture?
There is definitely the less is more camp, right? Kind of the refinement. I think a lot of that was a reaction against some of the excesses, right? And there's
Mm.
the whole influence of the times, the machine age, and things that you can do. Things that I love. So you could call a lot of stuff like the Scandinavian style, right? Very modern,
Mhm.
but when they start to use natural materials, I think it brings a whole another warmth to it,
Yeah,
right? So I definitely appreciate that. As far as the creative process, I do think the tools can influence the outcome to a
sure.
degree. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a musician. Um, I used to make a living as a recording artist, and the process of recording music has had the same exact trajectory as architecture, where previously, in order to be able to capture music in an effective way, it required usually tape,
Right.
which is a very arcane technology that not very many people knew how to use, and there wasn't a lot you could do to manipulate it. I mean, you literally would have to cut and splice pieces of
Physically.
tape,
Yeah.
literally
Yeah.
physically, and that kind of work that's not easy. So, but now there's fast forward 30 years, and there's computers that are generating music out of nothing.
Yeah.
AI is creating music.
Yeah.
I'm sure AI can create architecture too.
It does. Yeah. It's out there.
And I wonder what that kind of reliance on technology is going to do to us from a creative perspective.
Yeah.
Have you thought about that at all?
It'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, think about it just in the same context of what the internet has done to
Yeah.
us, right? So it's a lot of great things and a lot of not so great things. So
Yeah.
it's probably akin to that. There'll be some upsides, there'll be some downsides, but
Do you see AI becoming helpful in your industry in particular? We haven't even talked about what you do yet.
yeah.
So maybe we should start there. So
Yeah.
talk a little bit about your career trajectory. You started in architecture, but now you're in construction. So how did that happen?
Yeah. So, well, I mentioned my dad's family was in the construction business. So I grew up around that, loved it, was fed into that making, seen things made. My mom's dad was a salesman.
Hmm.
And he sold conveyors, this company called Dover Conveyor in Midville, Ohio. And so it was a good mix of role models and mentors, right?
Yeah.
Because I got great but very different experiences from each of them. So when I was in college, I would do construction in the summers. And then when I got into architecture, I would work at Dover Conveyor and I
Okay.
did drafting, right? So like mechanical drafting. So, and that was with AutoCAD or hand drafting or whatever. So that kind of in Dover Conveyor was a company that we drew the stuff in the front of the house, and there was a factory, and they built the stuff in the back of the
Oh,
house.
really?
So I was still very connected to
Hmm.
seeing things made, right?
That's really
Having a
cool.
hand in making that. So that really, for me, I always, when I did architecture, felt a strong connection to the physical or the made or the making side of it, very kind of practical side, right?
Yeah, that's
Because
cool.
there's a whole theoretical side to architecture as well,
Yeah.
right? So worked as an architect for probably, I'm going to try and get the time frames here, 25 years.
Okay.
And for 15 of those years, I was working with Rainier Construction. I was on at the table as part of a design build team, right?
And what does that mean, design build, for
Design,
people who don't know?
yeah, design build is when you assemble your team up front, right? So the contrast would be design, bid, build, so that people are kind of working in vacuums or silos, right? So the owner might hire an architect directly in that scenario,
Okay.
and they complete all the drawings, and then they put it out to bid, and they get multiple bids, and who knows what the cost is going to be, right? It is what it is.
Yeah.
And then, if it's too much, they got to go back and revise things, revise the drawings, kind of fix the budget.
Value engineering.
Value engineer, yeah. So design build, we assemble those teams from the very beginning, and we work together to establish budgets quickly in the process, right? So we can let the owners know, like, here's your scope, here's your budget. Does that look good? If yes, we move forward. If no, we go back and quickly change things and update it. And then, it's very collaborative, right? So there's a lot of the other scenarios, there's a lot of like headbutting or grenade throwing between the parties, right?
Yeah.
Finger pointing. We don't have that. So,
That's cool.
Yeah, we can establish these teams, and we all work together collaboratively.
So you were working as an architect in the design build process with Rainier Construction.
Yeah, and it wasn't the only thing I was doing. It was probably the majority of my experience for that 15-year window. But I would work on design bid projects for other people as well, and I just always thought, man, like, this is not as much fun. Like, people don't, there's a lot of like finger pointing again, right?
Yeah,
so the design build projects, it always seemed like, man, those are fun. You build these relationships. Everyone's like happy about the process and the product.
Yeah.
There's no surprises, right? So really was drawn to that, and always loved working as part of the team with Rainier. And about 5 years ago, Bill Heifner, the founder of Rainier, came to me and said, "Hey, I'd like you to, do what I do." That was my response. I'm like, "You're crazy, man!" Because I hold him in such a high regard.
Yeah, good dude.
And he is, one of my mentors, right?
Cool.
And was prior to that 5 years as well. So lots of deep thoughts and consideration, but it felt very authentic given my background and my passions.
Yeah.
And I decided to join Rainier about 5 years ago.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
So you've been there for 5 years, and what is your role?
I am the president and CEO at Rainier.
Big dog.
Yeah.
What
Just
is
like a rocket right to the top. Yeah.
What does that feel like so you work for an organization that obviously was supporting Rainier.
Yeah.
You kind of sounds like you got recruited by the guy that started the business.
Correct.
To come and be his heir apparent.
Yeah.
That feels pretty good, right?
Yeah.
What was that like to go through that experience?
It was like like I said, drinking from a fire hose and trying to spill a drop. You know what I mean? And the only regret, I told Bill this too, the only regret that I have is it didn't happen sooner. Right? Because I absolutely love it. It's so rewarding. There's such great people at Rainier. That's the other reason that I'm there.
Yeah.
I have wonderful partners there, great employees, a great culture. So it checked a lot of boxes. Yeah.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And, I think there's a lot of people out there that aspire to be in a role like yours. How do you feel like you got to that place in your career? Because that's a big deal.
Yeah. It it's a great question, Ryan. And I heard somebody, and this may or may not seem relevant, but I'm gonna throw it out there because it popped into my head. Um, Someone was describing, um, a story about a river crossing, right? And they were talking about how things that happen upstream that you can't see,
Mm,
that you don't know are happening, influence your ability to cross that river or where you're at,
yeah.
right? And so all I can tell you is there were things happening upstream,
Mm,
right? And a lot of that had to do with the mentorship, right? You got to find a good mentor,
amen.
and Bill is one of those, and those things create opportunities, right?
Mm,
You, I believe in self improvement, hard work, dedication, and you keep sticking with it,
mm.
and these opportunities will doors will open that you didn't know existed, right?
I love that
So
analogy of the stuff upstream
yeah,
affecting your ability to cross.
yeah.
What?
The really cool part about that is I thought about it more is when you start to realize that you're upstream from others, right?
Yeah,
And that your actions can influence and create opportunities for people that are downstream. Because
that's a
you're not only crossing
fantastic
rivers,
analogy.
sometimes you're swimming upstream, sometimes you're going with the flow,
It's
right?
really, really
Yeah,
good. I am a huge proponent of mentorship.
yeah.
I would not be where I am in my life if it wasn't for the people
Me
who
neither. Yeah,
have mentored me. And I like to describe it as a process of breathing. So I think life is all about the process of taking in and giving out.
yeah,
So like in order for me to be able to really effectively mentor other people, I have to be getting filled up by someone who's mentoring me.
yeah,
So they're breathing into my life, and then I then take that and breathe that into someone else.
yeah,
That sort of perpetual process, which I think is akin to nature. That's
yeah,
the way that the whole universe is created. That we wouldn't be able to exist if it wasn't for the life that we take from plants or animals. Like
right.
literally, we take in, like that tree out there. I was telling somebody the other day, that tree is giving us oxygen and we're giving that back what it needs to live
Right.
in carbon dioxide. What a fascinating
It's cool.
process that
Yeah.
is. And I think mentorship is the exact same thing, just on a human level.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
I totally agree. That's a great analogy as well. It I don't believe in the self-made man or the self-made
No
woman.
such thing.
No one does this alone.
No.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
unless there
it's
was some person that was somehow dropped out in nature by themselves and then somehow figured out how to live.
right.
There's no such thing. We all have things that are influencing us every single day.
Yeah.
Even
Yeah.
the stories of kids who are dropped in woods have animals that help them. Right?
right.
I mean,
Right.
so it's like you cannot exist. You can't exist in isolation.
yeah.
It doesn't work.
We're in this together. Yeah.
Amen.
Yep.
So you're the top dog in what is tell us about the company. What is Rainier?
Design build general contractors, founded in 1980. So we've been around for 44 years now.
Nice.
So yeah, so we build owner occupied facilities, private in the private sector, nothing in the public works. So
Okay.
we love working with entrepreneurs, like-minded people that value what we bring to the table, and we certainly value what they bring to the table. We love learning about other people's businesses to give them the best solution to their needs,
Hmm.
right?
Are there like certain types of buildings that you guys feel super confident in doing, or
Yeah,
do you do everything? Like, what's the deal?
we've done a ton of automotive dealerships, right?
Nice.
We've definitely one of our bread and butter project types. Transportation is another one. Warehouses, things of that nature. Yeah,
It's great.
yeah. There's nothing that I think that we can't do or that we won't do, but I think we're really good at that. We've been doing it a long time, and we've become trusted advisors to our partners. And we've learned a lot about their business. We're blessed in the sense that think about the automotive world. We get to work with multiple competing businesses,
Hmm.
right? And we're not sharing any trade secrets, but there's benefit to just learning from these multiple sources,
Hmm.
and kind of everybody, the whole product gets better the more we know about it. So
One thing that I think is really cool about the automotive business is just how family oriented it
yeah,
is.
it is cool.
Have you seen that same thing?
Oh yeah, it blows my mind. You have I don't know of any other business that would be quite like that, where
Yeah,
you
it's
can
like
have
it's literally all family.
fourth and fifth generation, wildly successful, well-run organizations.
Yeah,
Like I can't imagine.
I know.
And I know I don't know how that. Yeah,
Isn't that
it
fascinating? I
is.
wonder why that industry in particular is that way.
Yeah, it's cool though. Yeah.
What do you think that is? Like, what is it about that industry that fosters that much family involvement?
I don't know. It's a good question because you think about all the things that have to go right. So a lot of family businesses you'll hear where the kids just aren't interested,
Right.
right? But there's something I think uniquely um, inspiring and uniquely American about the automotive industry
Mm.
in this country, right?
Yeah.
We were just checking out our Jeeps
Yes.
outside. It's just they're fun,
They're
right?
so fun.
And so I think that, and it's kind of a universal product, right?
Yeah.
Most people need transportation, and
Yeah.
there's all ranges from the very practical to the very impractical and super cool, right? So there's a lot. It's very diverse, I
Yeah.
guess. Yeah, maybe that has something to do with it.
What do you think of this idea that, I was at a conference maybe 2 years ago, and a guy who is sort of a futurist in the automotive industry
Yeah.
said that he anticipates that within 10 to 15 years that most younger people won't own cars.
Hmm.
I think that's crazy personally.
Yeah.
I can't imagine our society without owning a vehicle.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on that?
Who was the futurist? Because I think I may have been at the same.
Oh,
or heard
really?
the
I
same
can't
thing.
remember. I
Yeah.
can't remember his name. He
Yeah.
was a fascinating guy, but I was like, wow, that's just a wild idea.
Yeah, I remember the same conversation. Those the automotive futurists and pundits are not often correct. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's just something about driving. It's
It's
goes
so
back to
good.
that freedom and independence, right?
Let's go back and talk about your formative relationships in life. So
Okay.
so you're in college,
Hmm.
and so are you married?
I'm married.
Okay.
Yep.
And how did you meet your wife?
I met my wife at middle school church camp.
Come on.
Yeah.
For real?
Yeah.
In Magnolia?
It was, I can't remember I remember the name. It was T-Bar T. It was in the Magnolia area.
Wow.
But yeah.
So you literally have been with your wife
No,
since
I
middle
met
school.
her there.
Okay,
So, yeah,
okay.
so she had a friend who was interested in me, and her friend coaxed her over to come tell me that and I'm like, I'm not interested in your friend, kind of a moment, right? But yeah, so we did date briefly in high school.
Okay.
And I like to tell a story that she dumped me. She was smart at the time. I had a lot of growing
She
up
really
to do.
did dump you?
Yeah. So, but we reconnected. She went to Ohio University.
Okay.
She's a teacher. She was studying teaching there.
Nice.
And we reconnected at a mutual friend's house in college one summer. And the rest was history.
That's
Yeah,
amazing.
it's just, yeah, we're like, yeah.
That's so cool. And you've been together ever since then?
Yeah. So that would have probably been around 1993 or 94.
Yeah.
And we got married in 1996.
So, I mean, you're coming up on 30 years marriage.
Yeah, we're getting there. Yeah.
Wow.
It's crazy.
I mean, that's amazing.
It is amazing.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that.
Makes me feel old all of a sudden.
What is the secret sauce? Like, how have you guys made it that far?
Oh man. I don't know. That's a good question. She's my best friend. I'll tell you the really cool thing. So going back to our conversation about Rainier and kind of conflict I was feeling about that opportunity. Should I or shouldn't I?
Yeah.
And those big life decisions. Corinne is always 100% supportive.
Mm.
Yeah, she's just kind of always. She's like, "You got this. Whatever you want to do." You
And
know,
what do you think that means to a man to have a
dude,
wife who is supporting you like
you
that?
have to have people that believe in you,
Yeah.
right? As a husband, as a father, right? It just and our kids need that. Everybody in that we interact with needs to know that we believe in them, right?
Mm.
So that's huge. It's
Yeah.
huge. Gives you that self confidence, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. We would go skiing a lot as a
Oh,
family.
cool.
Yeah, and
Where's your favorite place to ski?
oh man, we like to go to Colorado and Utah. Uh, Probably one of my favorites was Whitefish in Montana.
Never heard
Have
of
you
it.
ever been there?
Mm-mm.
So it is way up in northwestern Montana,
Okay.
almost to the Canadian border.
Beautiful. I mean, I've seen pictures,
Stunning,
never been
yeah,
there, but
and stunning, and it was so cool because it was just kind of. I love skiing at Vail,
mm,
right? But I understand the anti-Vail kind of stance as well. But it was so different than that in the sense that it was like a mom and pop ski resort, right?
oh, that's cool.
Everyone was so friendly, and my kids were a little skeptical, like, "Why is everyone so nice?" You know, like, well, they just are. But just absolutely stunningly beautiful. Cold,
Oh, I
extremely
would
cold, like
imagine.
-30 cold.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so but, yeah, Whitefish was awesome, but, went to Powder Mountain, this past year in Utah. It was kind of off the beaten path, kinda, you know,
It's cool.
not the big, Icon or Epic Pass resort, but, yeah.
You ever been to Lake Tahoe? My brother
I
and
have
his
not,
family
yeah.
live in Tahoe.
Yeah,
I've only been there in the summer. I've never gone to ski,
yeah,
but I mean, they just had snow like a week ago. A
I know.
ton of snow.
Yeah, just keep going.
Yeah, it's just wild. But you need to get to Tahoe. It's beautiful
Yeah,
there. So you get to work in an industry, in a craft that is extremely tangible.
yeah.
So like you literally can drive around town,
Mhm.
or like when you're flying out to Montana, you can fly and look down and point to all the things that you helped build.
Yeah.
What does that feel like to be able to see that all of this stuff that you and your team have
It's
created?
super rewarding, and to know what those, uh, buildings, what they're providing for the people who occupy them as well. I mentioned my dad's dad was a contractor. I remember, driving around with him in his truck, and he would drive me around, the town and say, "I built that, I built that, I built that." I thought
Dude,
that was so
my
cool.
grandfather
Yeah,
was the same way. So my grandpa built houses after
yeah,
he retired from Michigan Bell, and he was so proud to drive us around and
yeah,
point out all the different things that he built.
yeah. It's fun. I will tell you, the longer I've done this, I do love the kind of tangible built environment. But honestly, the relationships
Mm,
that we build have become more and more meaningful.
that's cool.
Yeah,
And what a legacy to be able to leave,
yeah,
to have those kinds of
yeah,
relationships.
yeah.
What do you think it is about your effectiveness to be able to build those kind of relationships?
It's pretty simple, man. The Rainier was founded on the principle of integrity, and Bill would describe that as um, always do the right thing, even when no one's watching.
Yeah.
And it's these kind of simple, fundamental, golden rule type things, right? And those behaving in that way builds trust. It's how people want to be treated, right?
Yeah.
And empathy, right? I think empathy is
Mm,
totally underrated. Put yourself in the shoes of someone who needs a building, and if you were them, how do you want to be treated? How do you want to be communicated
mm,
to, right?
yeah.
About the process. So yeah,
The
that's a
golden
huge
rule.
part of it. Yeah, it's a golden rule.
Treat people the way you want to
Yeah,
be treated.
yeah.
And that comes back to win for you at the end of the day, right?
Sorry.
It helps you to win when you
Oh yeah,
treat people the way that you want to be treated.
it does. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so simple, right? But it's uh, sometimes far too uncommon, right?
Mm.
these days.
Especially in business.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite building that you either designed or that you've built? Is there anything that sticks out to you?
Oh man, that's a tough question. So uh, I was also bitten by the remodeling bug, right? So kind of growing up, you can imagine with doing construction and being in love with making things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we bought our first house that we bought in Clintonville was I think Corinne must have been delirious. She was, I think, pregnant at the time. And
Yeah.
like, I still don't know how or why she let me buy this house. Again, she believed in me, but it needed literally everything. It had no electric upstairs.
Oh,
Like,
yes. A
and,
lot of
and
work.
oh my gosh, dude. Yeah, it was so bad. And so some of I think my favorite, we had like a 6 year, I did a lot of the work myself. So it was like 6 years of remodeling.
Wow.
Tough.
That's hard.
Not fun. But allowed us
While
to,
you were living in it?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
dude.
with two young kids.
Oh my gosh.
Right? So, talk about crazy. That's another reason I didn't golf,
Yeah.
was
Yes, I
time
can
there.
understand that.
But, so that allowed us to move to, Upper Arlington, and, we lived there for 15 years, and, now we're in Lewis Center now, but probably this is maybe not a direct answer to your, question, but, um, before we left our house in UA, we didn't really weren't planning on leaving, and during COVID, decided to remodel our kitchen,
Okay.
right? So, it was the 4 of us, my family, right? We had a plan, came up with it, we kinda designed it together,
That's fun.
and, we did a lot of demolition together, construction together, and I took a totally different approach, and then I went and bought, this was before supply chain issues, so it was kinda early,
Okay.
and I went and bought everything I needed, and I stuck it in the garage.
Oh,
So,
smart.
when I needed it, I just had to go to the garage and get it, and it was my greatest success for a home remodel project.
That sounds
Like,
great.
it was actually, it cost what I thought it should cost, and, took as long as I thought it should take, you know what I mean? So
Wow.
it's some things I had learned there, but it was probably the most
An
satisfying.
improvement from the 6-year process.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
So
More like 6 weeks.
And then you moved during COVID?
No, we moved last year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So did you design your house?
I worked, with another architect.
Okay.
And, had a hand in it, but I didn't do all the heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What do you like about the process of building a home that you then live in? What's that like?
It's been awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I used to watch, This Old House as a kid. You ever
Yes,
watch
I
that
love
show?
that show.
I couldn't get
It's
enough
so
of
good.
it. Yeah, I could not get enough of it.
Yeah.
So, I always wanted to,
Bob Vila, right?
Bob Vila and, Norm Abram, and
Oh, yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
who the other guy is, but, I've always wanted to, build a house or have a house built, right? And it was fun. It was rewarding. It's very cool. And blessed to have that opportunity to do that.
Right.
Yeah, it's been great.
So what do you think about Lewis Center? You
I
like
love
living
Lewis
there?
Center. Yeah. Yeah.
What do you like about it?
There's just a lot of cool people. I've met so many cool people since we've been up here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
and for the sake of people who don't know where I live, we live like 2 miles
Right.
away from each other,
Right.
practically.
Yeah.
It is a really interesting area because I told you I grew up in Worthington. When I was in high school, you could drive from 270 all the way up to Delaware, and there were no stoplights on 23.
Yeah. There was nothing there. Yeah.
This was all like literally farmland.
Yeah.
And in the last 25 years, it has grown to this. I mean, it's now the fastest growing county in the state,
Right.
one of the most affluent counties in the state. It definitely was not that not too long ago.
Yeah.
It's been an amazing transformation, and it's a cool thing to see, and a cool thing to be a part of building a community like that.
Yeah.
Does it feel a little bit more like the environment you grew up in, since it's a little bit removed from the city?
There's definitely a little bit of that, right? Because
Yeah.
there's still some there's still kind of a rural vibe, right?
Yeah.
Despite the rapid growth here.
Yeah.
And maybe that's, I never really thought of that, but that's a good point. I mean, maybe it is the kind of uh, rural vibe up here, or the people that live here that's still connected to that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
It's kind of like a sort of return to home.
yeah, right, yeah,
I like that.
yeah.
Is there anything that you want to say in closing?
Um, I don't know. I'm really excited. Thanks for having me,
Yeah, of course. Thanks
and
for doing this.
I'm super excited to get to know you,
Yeah, you too.
and to consider you a friend.
Yeah.
And I'm really, really excited about our partnership and where we're headed.
Yeah, me too.
So yeah,
Yeah. So for those who don't know, I in my business, Wilkins Collective, have partnered with Rainier Construction and am helping to tell the story of Rainier. So I'm really honored to have your partnership and appreciate that a ton. And I'm so excited about the future. I think there's a lot of really exciting stuff coming up.
agreed.
Yeah.
I feel very aligned, and it's super exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
good
thanks for
stuff.
coming on the podcast. I'm excited to get to know your story a little bit better and share it with people. And we really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks, man.
Yep.